Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you for joining this IAB Europe webinar. Just a few notes on housekeeping. Your microphones are muted. You can ask any questions for the Q&A segment by typing in the question box on the panel that's on the right of your screen. I should also tell you that this session is being recorded and the recording will be shared with everyone 2 hours after the event. It will also be posted on the IAB Europe website and of course other local IAB websites. Now I'd like to introduce this gathering of shining minds, except mine of course. With us we have Ezgi Doğanay. She's an associate digital director at OMD Turkey. We have Jack Paget, who is the audio and mobile product manager for Xaxis UK and Pan Regional. And we have Gökberk Ertunç, who is a senior programmatic executive at OMD Turkey. Myself and of course Alex Macarescu from IAB Europe are also in attendance. Now, let me tell you something about the people you are going to hear today. Jack Paget started in publishing with Criteo and then moved on to work with agencies and clients at Rocket Fuel, and later helped launch Group M's supply marketplace. He then spotted the huge potential of digital audio and is spearheading audio product development for Xaxis UK and across the globe. Jack loves to travel, but seems to have a tendency to ignore airlines and other normal ways to travel, since he took an ambulance to reach Mongolia and a 70s tandem bicycle to get to Amsterdam. So if you like your creature comforts, do not travel with Jack. Ezgi Doğanay has been in digital media for almost a decade and always in global agencies. She started in London at Karat Global, and her client roster ranges from Procter & Gamble to Mercedes and Nissan, until she became responsible for most of the global pod at OMD Turkey, with the likes of HP, Nissan, Disney, among others. Ezgi is also a lifestyle, healthy living and travel blogger, and also a pilot's instructor. So she doesn't appear to sleep. Gökberk Ertunç is a senior programmatic executive at OMD Turkey, and he started in the AQN team at OMD Turkey as an SEO specialist. He was an SEO specialist for many Turkish brands before specializing in programmatic and handling the Turkish Airlines global campaign that spanned 80 countries until 2017. He has completely transformed programmatic at OMD Turkey. He's also a psychology and media graduate and a Linux and open source enthusiast. And when you think of this combination, it's really frightening. Jack Paget will present the first section of this webinar, and it will be on digital audio. Audio can now be considered one of the oldest forms in modern advertising, but unlike other forms, it is not suffering from a global crisis. On the contrary, digital audio is experiencing an actual boom led by consumer behavior as usual, and aided by technology and data. And that's what we'll be looking at today. Jack Paget, you're on.
Thank you very much. Hi all, my name, as mentioned, is Jack Paget, and welcome to my IB webinar on digital audio advertising. It's just a title slide, so let's flip to the first proper one. So, audio has been a massive growth area in the programmatic advertising space. Over the past 2 years that Xaxis has been running audio, we've seen an 80% year-on-year growth in billings, which has brought it up to become one of the second largest product we offer now. with advertisers' insatiable desire only continuing to grow. In the UK, we have significantly benefited from fantastic partnerships with DAX, the Digital Audio Exchange, that when coupled with growing supplier relationships with the likes of Spotify or TalkSport, has enabled us to keep the audio engine well oiled with a strong source of supply and reach. What's attracted advertisers to audio is the power of the format. So in an increasingly cluttered world filled with banners and interrupted pre-rolls, being able to speak to the consumer in the moment with a seamlessly loaded audio ad carries great weight with our clients. In a 2018 survey of UK agencies and advertisers, 86% agreed that audio is a great way to reach listeners in a one-to-one context directly via their headphones, and 87% agreed that digital audio fits easily into people's lives and complements other activities they are performing. Anecdotally, I believe audio has maintained this ability to reach consumers intimately without being intrusive, due to the relatively small number of suppliers and publishers within the space in comparison with other digital mediums. This has helped maintain consistently high standards across the digital audio ecosystem, with users consuming long-form content such as a stream or a podcast, or maintaining relatively long sessions with a music streaming service. And currently, basically, digital audio listeners under 55 right now are already spending 10.2 hours a week listening, and hopefully that will keep growing. So I'll just catch up, sorry, click to the next slide, but I'm on there now, don't worry. Audio is a multi-device and multi-channel product, so it's enabling you to reach a diverse range of listeners. From a channel perspective, users who are streaming live digital radio are considered alongside those who are listening to on-demand Spotify. From a device perspective, audio serves across them all: computers, phones, tablets, TVs, games consoles, media players. If you can access digital audio, we can likely hit you with an ad. This wide breadth that audio has can cause some difficulties in targeting or reporting, which I discuss next. However, it's also one of the major selling points, as there's very little restriction to getting the message out there. So I'll click to the next one. So, I was referred to do this IAB webinar by some of our European colleagues, and they, in the process, they took us through their deck, which shared one major insight as to where life is much easier for us in the UK. So this area is usually based around audience and data coverage. Outside the UK, audio targeting is very tightly linked to publisher first-party data due to a mix of reasons, such as streaming services like Spotify are heavily in-app based, and we know that most DMPs have been slow in catching up here regarding data coverage, right? Everybody still sits in cookie universes, even though our audience does not. Live digital radio services often rely on server-side ad insertion, which this further reduces coverage, as dropping sync pixels is not really possible due to noise reading pre-existing cookie files. And also because the digital audio market has evolved out of the linear radio market, syncing of IDs between DSP, SSP, DMP has kind of been a slow thing to adopt because it's been of lesser importance to traditional radio planners. However, the good news, even in a post-GDPR world, is that things are moving in the right direction, well, at least here in the UK. We've historically had adequate coverage for audiences, but through our close relationship with some of our suppliers, for example, DAX, and by extension their SSP AdSwiz, we've been continually improving our audience coverage rates. Then we couple this with the long march toward adequate device ID audiences in all of our DMPs, which is now obviously in a stronger than ever position. Still not good enough in my standards, but definitely getting there. And there's one final frontier that I've not covered here, which is smart devices and media players. This is probably the fastest growing user agent sector within digital audio at the moment. And the massive growth obviously in smart assistants such as Alexa, Google Home, and smart TVs and Sonos systems. This category of devices essentially still remain fairly untargetable with the current methods. However, a problem shared is a problem halved. So solving for smart devices for digital audio is a similar issue encountered by the likes of connected TV buyers, which is obviously a sector that's massively growing right now. So with Finecast being in the same building as Xaxis here in the UK, I'm looking forward to sharing insights and solutions with them to those kind of unique targeting problems. This now brings me to my next slide. So this is just a short piece about personalization. As I mentioned earlier, it's a fantastic format for delivering one-to-one messages to highly engaged users, speaking to them in the moment with a direct message. So building on this concept, we met with a dynamic audio creative specialist who I'm sure many of you either know about or they're at least, they deserve a shout out, which is A Million Ads, and particularly, I believe her name is Silka from A Million Ads. These guys came to us with an easy to use, simply priced, rapidly launchable out of the box solution, which is dynamic creative for audio. So we set up a beta test campaign with them to run in the lead up to Christmas. The idea behind this is by using a range of inputs, data inputs, from easy ones like location or real-time weather or time of day or day of week, all the way through to custom segment signals. A Million Ads can vary the creative message that each user hears, which adds a powerful layer of personalization. They build a logic tree and they manage it with input from ourselves and the clients. And with only a couple of individual variables, you get thousands of unique combinations coming out. And the true test of this on whether it works or not was an A/B test we ran with them, which was pitting standard versus dynamic creatives for an energy supplier through the winter months. The dynamic creative message called out the weather, location, and the time of day, day of week, such as on this cold, wintry Wednesday morning in, Edinburgh or something like that. And we coupled this with DAX's listener ID reporting, which I'll touch on in a moment. But essentially, we saw a 2 times increase in conversion uplift from those users exposed to the dynamic creative when compared with the standard one, which kind of really beat home that message that being personalized and taking it to the next level works for audio. So I'll take you to the next slide. The final kind of chapter for audio, and there's a couple of slides on this, is reporting. So reporting on audio campaigns can be a bit difficult, as the same reasons that I mentioned earlier to do with data and targeting. There's a diverse range of suppliers, different types of players, different devices, different streaming types, so getting consistency is tough. To add into this, obviously, a vast majority of the audio ad serving is done using this server-side ad insertion, where the creative and any associated pixels are requested by a server and not the client or user's device. The lack of direct communication with the client device means that many traditional pixel-based reporting systems will not work, or at least will fail initially until you do some background work on them. So, what have we done? Well, what can we do to kind of beat this? An easy one, again, we've had a nice ride in the UK, is that through our partnership with DAX in the UK, we're given access to their Listener ID product. This uses DAX's relationship with their publishers and players to enable client-side pixel fires to occur. Now, they are only DAX's client-side pixels, but it's better than none. So essentially, if they can also get pixels onto the advertiser's website, then they can report back on those users who heard the audio ad. But whilst this obviously only solves for desktop listeners visiting desktop client sites, it marks a massive change in the progress of audio reporting. As for the non-trackable users, by framing this reporting system as one that reports on uplift, looking at site visitors and splitting into listen versus non-listeners, we're able to produce robust reporting metrics out of this. And lastly, under reporting, is some work that we've been doing on our side. Over the last quarter, we've been building this. Essentially, that Listener ID system was fantastic, but we've been building our own system in parallel to overcome certain issues and develop additional benefits. So this system taps into GroupM's existing M platform infrastructure by using the synced user IDs shared by SSPs in the OpenRTB protocol. Once added into the M platform system, we can then leverage pre-existing client site pixels to report on the power of audio. Coupled with this, obviously, we can offer advanced audience insights from the M Insights DMP. Now, again, the reason why we developed this is because obviously clients tend to have a resistance to adding in, endless third-party pixels going in there. So we were like, if our clients already have our M platform pixels in place, why can't we just use them? But similar to data and targeting, this is only possible currently in the UK due to the maturity of our market. However, as spends rise across the continent and hopefully across the world, I suspect that this will roll out to other markets faster than expected. So, as a final wrap up, I just want to cover on some basic stuff. So, digital audio in the UK has been a massive growth area. Every time that I think that we've hit peak audio, the month beats the previous month, which is great. Credit a lot of this is due to the partnerships we've had with suppliers here, which when coupled with agency-wide education pieces, has helped digital audio become a major part of many plans from both digital teams and AV teams. Although it's a difficult beast to work with due to the diverse range of channels and devices, these present huge opportunities to further increase the power and influence of the product. And lastly, although I know we'll probably go into the questions later, Alex requested me that I have a think about possible crossover between digital audio and our next subject, which is digital at home. So one small closing comment on that is that in the UK, we've run some audio campaigns utilizing mobile location data to target users seen in proximity of out-of-home, now not digital out-of-home, advertising, and it opened up a fantastic tie-in between the offline and online world. So as out-of-home becomes digital and, as developments go in that area around digital out-of-home targeting and reporting and etc., I suspect this only has the scope to increase the targeting and insight possibilities when coupled with an audio campaign. With audio handling in the ears and digital at home handling the eyes, the omnichannel consumer can be directly reached, but in a non-intrusive manner, hopefully. And that is me and digital audio. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. For the sake of the hundreds of people that are with us from all around Europe, I'd like to just remind our participants that the Q&A session will be held at the end, and you can send me your questions by typing them in the question box in the panel on the right of your screen. And then this takes us to our next section on this webinar. A lot of people were announcing the end of out-of-home advertising as something that was a remnant of the past in the late 80s and early 2000s. It started being seen as something that was fading until, of course, digital interactive positions became of age. Again, technology, data, and creativity came to the rescue. And now we're witnessing some of the most brilliant and effective campaigns on this media. A final example of this is what Ezgi and Gökberk are going to share with us. And they're going to share that with us now. Istanbul, please take over.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
And now we are going to share our HP case with you that we ran at the end of 2017. It was the December month. And for our HP brand, we had a new product launching called Sprocket. And our challenge was to increase brand awareness for this newly launched product, which has a very niche target audience. And our target audience were the young people and also their parents, as well as the travelers and white collars. So it was a bit tough to reach all these people directly, specifically. And since it was December, we wanted to take advantage of the present gifts month. Although we don't have Christmas, we celebrate the New Year's. So we wanted to take part of this, the festive season, and we wanted to reach people while they were shopping. So our strategy was to go live on the selected shopping malls, which were Canyon and Zorla Center, and these are more niche and people with you know, the white collar people go to these malls more often. So that's why we wanted to use these malls, and also we wanted to select the segment both from mobile applications as well. So we included both the outdoor screens as well as the mobile apps for our hyperlocal targeting. And to execute our campaign, we collaborated with a tech company, Avarion, for the programmatic out-of-home technology, as well as Blush, which is a mobile tech company. So we created a programmatic outdoor campaign through a DSP, and using the Blush infrastructure, it was the first time in Turkey that we used third-party audience data for a real-time spot buying, and made the first in our market with a programmatic out-of-home, combining the third-party data together. And at the same time, we launched a mobile display campaign, which was synchronizing with the programmatic out-of-home campaign over the same DSP and the same malls with hyperlocal. And our results were really successful. One thing was that being media first in the market by using the third-party data and real-time spot buying, and also it was a unique targeting audience by reaching the students and travelers, and we targeted the malls while the malls were crowded with our target audience within the malls. And at the end of our campaign, we reached more than 400,000 people within a week only, and we saved 25% of our budget by executing this campaign. I want to share our video to summarize and talk you through about our campaign, how it started, and how did we go live with a bit of more screen, shots and creatives. So at the end, I will, and Gökberk will hear your questions if you would like to ask anything to us.
Our goal was to increase awareness of HP Sprocket, our product, and the number of physical store visits. We aimed to catch our target audience, which are young people between 10 to 23 ages and their parents, white collars between 24 to 29 ages, and potential customers who like to travel. We could not miss the shopping period of upcoming Christmas season. We chose two malls that most overlap with our target audience, Canyon and Zorlu Center. Our strategy to introduce our product to the users who come to these shopping centers and match the related audience segments on both of outdoor and mobile with hyperlocal. As a result of collaborating with Awarion, which is programmatic out-of-home technology company, and Blesh, that is a mobile marketing and technology company, we created a programmatic outdoor campaign through the DSP. With the Blesh infrastructure, we used third-party audience data for real-time spot buying and made a first in our market. Also, we launched mobile display campaign that synchronized with the programmatic outdoor campaign on the same DSP over the same malls with hyperlocal. Being as a media first in the market, we used third-party data with real-time spot buying on digital outdoor screens when our target audience, which consists of students and travelers, got crowded in the shopping malls. We have reached 452,380 people within a week and saved 25% of our budget with programmatic outdoor campaign.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, and Gökberk and Jack, of course. And we will now address the questions that we received from the hundreds of participants in this webinar. I'll start the ball rolling with a question from Brussels, and it is for all of you. The main goal, the holy grail for all of us nowadays seems to be being media neutral and media integrated. And so we should talk about integration. I know you addressed this, Jack, how do digital audio and digital out of home complement each other, and how can they be used together to deliver effective campaigns. But we would also like to get an input from Ezgi and Gökberk. Hello?
In this setup, we are actually used a platform 161 as a main DSP, and also we are integrating beacon audiences within the DSP channels. And in the online offline integration part, we are used Blesh company for track all of this beacon and location activities in malls, and we used a platform 161 to actually execute programmatic buying through actual digital out of home screens. And for integrations, these digital out of home screens also actually have some kind of exchange plugins in their screens, because it's just basically they are just basically connected and pushing through an ad server just before that setup. And within this update, we provided with our own company in here. They are just upgraded the software of this digital out of home screens, and they just integrated a private exchange to directly DSP buyings. So we are collecting beacon-based audiences through direct connection to DSP, the platform 161, and we are integrated out-of-home units through a private exchange.
Okay, thank you. Jack, would you like to add something to this?
I mean, it's only a short one, which is that essentially the best way that any of these systems integrate usually is when they can either be executed obviously out of one point, and I understand that obviously coming from an agency trading desk, I could sound like I'm really evangelizing it here, but when things deliver out of one DSP, or at least where one DSP can connect to another, you know, even if they're dealing with different types of media, that's what really brings campaigns together. Is when, you know, if you're executing one type of campaign, signals can be shared into another campaign, whether it's, oh, sorry, my fire alarm's going to go off in a moment. I might get a bit loud, but that's essentially it. I'm going to mute myself for a second now. Sorry.
It's okay. That actually brings us to another question, which relates to mobile location data and GDPR. And how are you guys ensuring that this is compliant? Of course, Turkey is not included in the inconvenience of GDPR unless they are broadcasting campaigns across Europe. But it is a problem, as we see worldwide. The tendency for the defense of privacy is increasing. And so that is a very good question. How are we ensuring that the mobile location data we are using is compliant with GDPR? Anyone?
Yeah, actually, in this setup, we are just executing campaign in just last year. But it's also the GDPR compliance needs to apply on the tech side. In Blesh company collecting all of this location data audiences from applications SDKs, and these applications have publishers, and publishers also integrated their guides to local actual lawyers. And besides, the GDPR is not yet issued in Turkey, but in Turkey have a similar law as Turkish Turkish privacy law, which called this just like the same GDPR, KVKK in Turkish, and they are in this law. There are also we need to respect the privacy and to ensure not of any personal identifiable informations just collecting through that audiences. So there is no direct person, or there is no direct an ID not coming to our DSPs. The technology company Blesh actually just integrated with publishers applications. Publishers needs to get approval from their partners and the customers. And also publishers after that actual process only Blesh collects this actually given consents audiences from that part. So we are just collecting by that part, yeah.
Jack, are you back?
I am back now, and the fire alarm's off, which is good.
Okay. Do you have anything to add regarding the use of mobile location data and compliance with GDPR?
Well, yeah, obviously having worked on the mobile product, I watched a lot of our suppliers that we worked with for location data in the past, and they all, essentially a lot of them dropped out of the running. But the ones who remained were the ones who had correct consent mechanisms in place. They were correctly recording which, users and how they are getting their permission. And I kind of feel like it's almost easier to get some of the permissions requested via apps, because it's much easier to have the proved consent, right, with apps and SDKs with certain exchanges and their consent management platforms. As long as everybody is playing by the rules correctly, and the amount of back and forward emails we had to do with any suppliers that we worked with in the lead up to the end of May was a lot of work. I think it's worked for the good, because gone are the days when people are just, scraping locations from the OpenRTB, bidding mechanism. And now people are getting much more accurate and much more user consented data straight out of apps that have actually requested permission and received it.
Oh, absolutely. In the end, this will bring maybe lower volumes of data, but much better quality, and by people who are actually following the rules. So completely agree. Also, there's the matter of anonymity, because if you're taking statistic data and not personal data, you're okay. Okay, that brings us quite a lot of people have been asking me about downloading the slides. This webinar is being recorded, and it will be made available approximately 2 hours after it ends. So you will have full access to the whole presentation. Another constant or consistent question, which we have already made a note of, is the interest in seeing case histories where both digital audio and digital out of home are combined. So integrated campaigns between the two. Actually, the Istanbul case was sort of integrated, because it combined location data with out of home activation. So it is a case. We will share further cases as they become available to us, and who knows, maybe we'll do another webinar with only integrated cases. But I'm overstepping promises here. We have made a note of it, and we'll be making available whatever is made available to us. Another question that I would like to ask Jack is about measurement. This seems to be a key issue tied to digital audio at the moment, correct? And when
yeah.
you have touched it, but What are some ways of addressing concerns tied to measurement?
So I will be honest, measurement really matters on which teams we tend to be working with in agencies. Now, obviously, when we work with the AV teams, they are traditionally, I'd say, slightly less concerned with a lot of the measurement that I'm concerned about. That's because I've obviously come from a very digital background, right? So when it comes to AV teams, they are very fine usually with the lower levels of reporting, but they are certainly getting interested in new stuff that we can offer. Now, when it comes to digital teams and anyone who's worked in, display and especially performance display for a long time, audio can leave them wanting more. And so essentially, it's just been a long march to try and bring that up there because it benefits from bringing in this money from two ranges of teams that don't often interact massively. But as long as we can keep catering to both of them, we're able to provide nice surprises for the AV teams in terms of here is much more insight that we can provide you, and that also we can provide a reassurance to more traditional digital performance teams that there are metrics they can report on. We can run brand lift studies, we can report on user actions on site. It's not perfect, we can't track every user, so the future of a CPA or ROI campaign is probably very far away and not something that I really feel fits with audio. Audio is definitely towards the topper ends of the funnel, driving awareness or consideration. But as close as we can get to the lower levels of the funnel, the better and the more of an integrated product I think it'll be.
Thank you, Jack. Another question I have from Italy is how do the digital out of home track the data? Is it Wi-Fi counting, cameras, or other sources? This question is, of course, for Ezgi and Gökberk.
Hello, and the source is actually Beacon or Beacon products. In mall environments, classic hyperlocal signals do not enough. So we are partnered with a local beacon company, Blesh, and they are generally working in-store analytics, like if anyone purchases, if anyone took some product on their shelves and goes to the checkout, their actually main goal is the showing all of these flows in that part. So
and one more thing, there is apart from just reaching out to the product, it's also available when there is a beacon product within the mall. And our targeted audience, as soon as they enters in the mall, then we have the signal from the beacon product so that we can target that audience entering the mall just in a minute. Like we have the data then.
Yeah, geofencing, beacon, and also wireless connections also tracked by that specific company, and combined to unified one signal, one reporting and audience signal for that special campaign.
Yes, because only one product is not enough to reach the right consumer, because everyone might be entering the shopping mall. So it is not only one data source. We also have the geofence as well as the hyperlocal on top of the beacon technology. So all combined, as Gökberk just mentioned.
Yeah, and for audience catering part, we are actually identified person by their, for example, in the application usage, and if they are students, for example, they need to be constantly give signals in the universities. So we made that kind of rules just before the campaigns and start to listening with geofencing in broad areas, and for specific targeting, just like the gender and other targetings are applied by beacon parts actually. For example, if somebody using men's restroom, they just actually identified as a male audiences, and if goes to the female restroom, then getting the female identifier on their audience signals. So they also made their actually identifications just run like that.
Where third-party data comes in after reaching out the people who are entering the malls with all the signals we just mentioned.
Excuse me, Ezgi, there seems to be a problem with your audio quality. It
Can you hear
might
me better now?
Yes, much better.
Okay, so this is where the third-party data comes in, as Gökberk just mentioned. After combining the data with the beacon company, as well as the geofence and the wireless signals, then we combine it with the third-party data, where we can define the students, the white collars, and the travelers. So these are all the data are combine and match together to reach the specific consumers that we had for the campaign.
Okay, thank you, Ezgi. I have another question for Jack. Do you think digital audio personalization can go too far, and to what extent? Is there a point it becomes ineffective?
I mean, so when we looked at the original offering around digital audio personalization, we were looking at, there were some offerings that some audio services can even provide you, I mean, pre-GDPR, can even provide you with names or playlists and etc. like that. And we tended to skip a little bit away from it. We didn't want to get, I'm agreed with the comment basically that you can get too personal. I think if you start calling out someone's name or too precise a location about where they are, then your effectiveness drops off and you fall into the uncanny valley of being creepy. But I think that basic stuff like, general area, which tends to usually be city level, and, the weather and the time of day, just adds a little bit of context to what the message that someone is hearing is. But yeah, I do agree. I think if you go too deep into something, then you often get a negative reaction. And it's all about finding that saddle point between enough personalization to get an effective message, but not too much to scare them.
Thank you, Jack. Now I have another question for Ezgi and Gökberk. How do you apply audience targeting, considering out-of-home ads are exposed to so many people at the same time?
Our main strategy is it's not a classic digital buying just like one-to-one strategy. We need to apply one-to-many strategies in this buying. So by that audience collect, which we mentioned the base, how can we collect, and this audience signal just divides in our target malls. For example, Canyon malls and the Zorlu mall. We are just getting just like doing a DMP audience insight analysis. We are just getting the estimated estimated audiences in that specific mall. For example, 10,000 person in our target group just visiting the mall in one day. So we are dividing to hours and getting the base levels and standard levels on that particular area or mall. So in 1 hour, 100 people just passing down in our target audiences is our baseline. If if 120 people comes and goes to the mall in our target audiences, our outdoor units are triggering. And if not above the 100 people, just like the 80 people from our target audiences, just visiting the Canyon Mall, we outdoor units just stops and not triggering to show the right persons on that place.
Thank you, Gökberk. I have another question on digital audio. Jack, what DSP is best for buying programmatic audio recording, according to you?
That's a loaded question. So essentially,
especially coming from where it comes.
Well, no, so in all honesty, obviously, if anyone knows GroupM and Xaxis well, you know that traditionally we have a long-standing relationship with AppNexus. So obviously for us, we use AppNexus on our side. However, we've explored some of the other alternatives. We've looked into the likes of the Trade Desk. Obviously, you've got Google now incorporating it as of, I think it was about a month, maybe a month and a half ago. And then you have some specialists such as, AdsWiz, who are a significant SSP, also, I believe, offer a DSP side stuff. So, I mean, essentially, do you know what it really comes down to? It comes down to, with your particular suppliers, which DSP can connect to them. And as long as it can connect and there's reasonable product support for what you need to do, then I think it's going to work. There are obviously always going to be slight issues, again, related just to the diverse range of devices and channels you can connect to. Many DSPs can look at some of those impressions and they can look a little bit odd. But, if you've got a close relationship with your DSP, I'm sure you can work out a solution with them, especially if you can do it all over open RTB protocols. Makes life nice and easy.
Well, following on that, what sort of match rates are you seeing between the DSPs being utilized and the SSPs?
Sorry, in terms of match rates for targetable users?
I'm afraid I can't answer you that.
Sorry. Well, if it's coming to something like targetable users and stuff like that, this is something that's been growing quite a lot. I can't give an actual number for it because estimating that kind of stuff until recently has been relatively impossible, and it's still something that we still struggle with actually estimating those things to begin with. But that's one side. One thing that you do encounter a lot with audio is because of the growing area of how many user agents, right, new devices that there are, often new devices tend to trigger a lot of alarms in a DSP, right? Because a DSP that spent its entire life buying, let's say, impressions from desktops, laptops, and mobile phones, when that spots an impression coming out of something like a Sonos or an Alexa, that rings a lot of usually fraudulent alarm bells. And so we have to work very closely with some of the user agent vendors and also our suppliers to make sure that these are all accepted, but also above board and correct. So, I mean, there can sometimes be little hills to climb, but usually, again, if you've got a good relationship with your supplier, they know how many impressions they are making available to you. You know how many are actually available to you, and any differential between that is usually something worth investigating and see if you can solve it.
Okay, thank you, Jack. And another interesting question is, how are you measuring and reporting on podcasts, especially when the user listens to the podcast offline?
Now, this is something I didn't touch on here because as far as the UK is concerned with Xaxis, we are playing an observer position on podcasting, which just basically means we're waiting to see how the market is going out. And these are the questions that I've sat there and looked at them myself and been like, I don't see too many viable solutions to this when it does come to podcasting. However, when I meet with a lot of the people who sell podcasting, there's a lot of interest, primarily because podcast audiences sit weirdly, uniquely, very separately from even a lot of the rest of the digital audio ecosystem. Now, obviously there's overlap, but there's quite a lot of unique people you can't really find anywhere else. But podcasting is very, very difficult when it comes to targeting and reporting. And it's something that I'm looking at very closely to see, how the market's reacting. Because if the market doesn't care, then I'm going to dive straight in. But if the market does care, then I'm constantly looking for someone who might come up with a unique solution. I haven't got one myself yet, but I'm very interested to see where it goes. I know it's much more important podcasting when it comes to our more regional markets. So obviously, as I work with pan-regional, I've got an interest in podcasting there, simply because it just gives you a lot more reach. And as the targeting and reporting is more immature in non-UK markets, then the jump to podcasting isn't that much of a leap. Whereas obviously in the UK, it's still quite a leap to go there.
I see. Well, we're running out of time. I have one interesting question for digital out of home, which relates to the. I'll just read the question and try to clarify it. If digital out of home is not in-store based, such as proximity digital out of home isn't available, the option of GPS, Wi-Fi to gather data. I'm not sure I understand this question. I'll try to explain it. Whenever we're not in store, we have to use proximity sensors and or the option of GPS. Is that so? Ezgi?
Hello. By that clarification, we understand that is that possible to just using GPS signals and proximity sensors, right?
Yes, whenever it's not in-store based.
Yeah, it's actually possible. We were use beacons just before these shopping malls are going vertical, and there are lots of store in that places. And in HP case, actually, the main strategy is not only based on the in-store audiences, because we had to use third-party audiences because in-store analytics are not present in that stores. So proximity sensors and the geo-targeting can be applicable within the all environments. The only issue would be, for example, in the vertical targeting on the many different levels on the floors in the mall. It can be it's the issue in that case, but beside that, it's not necessary, and it could be collect a footfall report based on that targetings.
Okay, thank you, Gökberk and Ezgi. We only have time for two more questions. This one is for Jack. Has there been work or discussions around fraud detection and measurement for digital audio?
Yeah, so obviously with our DSP, we discussed this quite extensively because they have lots of automated systems and we want to make them work with our side. But then also because we are able to run this product with relatively few but close level relationships with our suppliers, that certainly helps with things, right? Because we audit a lot of their inventory, we work very closely with them, they work very closely with us in adhering to our standards, you know, such as JIC-Web certification, and I believe they're going for IAB Gold Standard. I can't quite remember, but we certainly maintain that from our side. So working very closely with suppliers is currently one of the better ways to deal with this at the moment, because obviously everything we run is through deals and then having a good relationship with our DSP. But obviously as this grows as a market, it's going to attract fraud, just like everything does, right? You know, it used to be all display, and now a lot of the fraud moves into video because it's a massively growing area. And I hope that we won't have it leaking into the audio ecosystem, but there is an inevitability that it will be there. So at the moment, it's quite open market for what the best solutions for this are. And basically, can we apply current systems into this for checking? Yes, in certain ways, but no, not in all the ways we'd quite like to yet. So, I mean, for the time being, it's going to have to be close working relationships, but in the future, I'm sure there'll be better standards coming out.
Thank you, Jack. And one final question for all of you. If you were to make one prediction for 2019 with respect to digital audio and digital out of home, what would that be? And now we're in the prediction mode. Don't talk, everyone, don't talk at the same time, please.
I mean, my kind of guess for this kind of prediction is that with a lot of the growth in things like digital out of home and basically formats that have not traditionally been the bread and butter of the past, you know, the past 4 or 5 years has been heavily driven by display, with everybody hoping for mobile and a lot of video spend going in there. But right now, I'd say that as we diversify into lots of newer areas, we're going to see money breaking up between those areas in, I hope, a nice fashion, right? Where no longer is, you know, 1 or 2 products taking up the vast majority of all spends. It's a diversification is what I see coming.
Thank you. Ezgi, Gökberk, your turn.
Well, yes, I think it's going to spread more as well. At the moment, it is not really common, and we are one of the just a few agencies just run a campaign like this. So I'm thinking that it's going to spread more. And also about the audio, it hasn't been done in Turkey yet. So actually we were thinking with Gökberk that we should run a campaign on audio-based campaign here with the dynamic ads. So I think this is going to be spreading more and more within the upcoming years, and we are hoping that that we will be using more like the digital tools as the other products like the Alexas or the Google Home products are gonna explode more, hopefully, and we will have more creative technologic opportunities here in Turkey as well.
And also, I have a final predictions about this market. In actually, the out-of-home units generally are there are less competitive, and the integration is much more easy because they want to sell their inventory, and within the shrinking budgets on the out-of-home, they want to take a digital budgets, so they are open to actually that kind of budget shifting opportunities. But in the audio parts, generally integrations are ready. For example, Spotify has already turned way to programmatic, but the local channels generally using audio edge servers, which capability of the using programmatic audio, but as a general approach, they don't want to lose money on their currently IO-based environment, and they just holding right now. But in future, I think that the digital out-of-home will be much more explored by this taking the digital budgets effects. But after that, maybe this, as Ezgi said, this Alexa's, Google Home devices are spread more in the, especially in the European parts and the rest of the world. It will be available for audio-based campaigns, much more easy and ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Ezgi. Thank you, Gökberk. This concludes this webinar. I would like to thank you all once more for joining us. And don't forget that it will be available online in just 2 hours. On behalf of IAB Europe and all of us around the world, thank you and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.